This is Special Prosecutor Larry Klayman.
I'm the only lawyer ever to obtain a court ruling that a president of the United States committed a crime.
For truth. For competition.
As a young lawyer, I helped break up AT&T. That's why you have all your cell phones today.
For sovereignty. For the Republic.
I'm the guy who at Judicial Watch, which I founded, uncovered the Chinagate scandal. Millions of dollars going to the Clinton campaign, corrupting our political system.
For the privacy of citizens.
And I'm the only guy to have enjoined the National Security Agency from mass surveillance on hundreds of millions of Americans.
Tearing it up.
I'm the son of meat packers in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. I know how to slice and dice.
Bringing it back.
We're going to take this country apart and put it back together again in the way envisioned by our founding fathers.
It's not just talk.
We're not just regurgitating news stories. Larry Klayman, special prosecutor, is making the news.
And now, here's Larry.
Welcome to this week's edition of Special Prosecutor with Larry Klayman. It's the 2019 July 4th weekend, a very, very important weekend indeed. And we saw a celebration on the National Mall put on by President Donald Trump, something that was well worth doing. The amount of money that was spent pales in comparison to what we spend on worthless wars and other types of things that we've been doing now for many, many years. And for people to complain that he showed a smidgen of our military might, for the Democratic Socialist candidates for president, for radical Muslims, radical feminists, radical pro-choice advocates. I hate that word pro-choice because it's not pro-choice, it's pro-murder advocates, for atheists, for radical blacks, for the Jewish left, and for the rest. Let those people all go to you-know-where. Because, see, we have to honor the vision of our founding fathers. We have to renew who we are. It was Thomas Jefferson who said that we would have to wage a new revolution every other generation. He even said we'd have to spill blood. I don't advocate that. I advocate peaceful and legal means, and that's what we do at Freedom Watch. And you can go and see what we do at freedomwatchusa.org. That's freedomwatchusa.org. But yesterday we even saw flag burning of the American flag in front of the White House gates. By communists, these people are more suited for the streets of Moscow or Beijing or Caracas or Havana than they are Washington, D.C. But this is what we're up against. And as this was going on, we were participating in events with family and friends, at barbecues, at fireworks, at other kinds of gatherings all throughout the United States. And these people were literally like barbarians at the gates, telling us that either at the ballot box or by force, they will tear this country down. They will take it over. They will try to install a Bolshevik-style gulag leadership, similar to what we saw in Ayn Rand's Atlas Shrugged and George Orwell's 1984. And therefore, although we're celebrating, although we have this beautiful country, and although we have all these riches that we can partake of, and I don't care who you are in this country, the fact that this country is what it is, as created on July 4, 1776, in our native city of Philadelphia, that's where I was born. I'm very proud of that, even though I spent my adult years in the South and other parts of the United States. But we have to take stock right now as to who we are. We have a fight ahead of us. These groups who have banded together as a coalition, they have very little in common. And if they do take the country over, and they plan to, like I said, either at the ballot box and or by force through violent revolution, they will start fighting with each other, because there's nothing more different than some of these groups that now are trying to tear the country apart. But they're coming together to do it, and they think that when it's over, they're going to be able to put it back together in their own vision, their socialist vision, their anti-pro-life vision, their atheist vision, their anti-Semitic, their anti-Christian vision. And that's what we need to fight against. And that's what we've been trying to do at Freedom Watch, peacefully and legally. As you know, just in the last few weeks, we instituted our first citizens grand jury. We indicted special counsel Robert Mueller. You can go see that video at Freedom Watch's YouTube channel. You can also link it off of our website at freedomwatchusa.org. Recently, I did a little piece on Newsmax explaining what it is we were doing. You can watch that as well. I want you to study this. because this show is so important on Radio America, and I really love the people at Radio America. They let me say what I want to say, unfiltered, uncensored. It's an educational process, and that's what our Citizens Grand Jury was all about. Not just to bring about justice. Yes, we do intend to try Mueller. We will soon indict James Comey, Rod Rosenstein, the Lovebirds, Peter Strzok, Lisa Page, and Obama's intelligence czars, James Clapper, John Brennan, and yes, the Clintons and the Obamas themselves. And let's not forget about people like Ilhan Omar, the representative from Minnesota, the Manchurian candidate, this radical Muslim that was somehow placed inside our Congress, along with her colleague, Rashida Tlaib, to take the country down, to install Sharia law, to, in fact, further the Islamic Caliphate. That's what they're doing, no doubt about it. You know, Ilhan Omar was married to her brother. She committed immigration fraud. She filed joint tax returns when, in fact, she wasn't even married to the person that was on the return with her. Yet even the Trump Department of Homeland Security won't investigate. And that's why we have filed a lawsuit to force an investigation. And if proves that it's true, and I believe that it will, by prosecution and deportation from this country. And it's not because we're trying to persecute Muslims. Muslims live in peace. That's fine. But unfortunately, the Islamic religion does not teach peace. And there are many Muslims who follow that. They follow the Quran. It's not the holy book, as Obama used to say. The Quran teaches to kill the infidels and to take over the world in the name of Allah. And that's why these people must be addressed, as well as these other radical groups. Some of the radical groups are close to my heritage. I'm a Jewish Christian. I love my Jewish heritage. I'm a Zionist. I believe in Israel. But I'm also a Christian, and I believe in Jesus. I believe that Jesus wanted us to live peacefully in this world, not to kill each other and not to subjugate each other to slavery. And that is why this July 4th, I ask you to join our Justice League and go to freedomwatchusa.org. Let us bring about justice with our citizens' grand juries, with our hard-hitting cases, whether it's against the social media companies who have discriminated against the American people, conservatives and libertarians in particular, whether it's against Antifa. We have lawsuits at the Ninth Circuit right now because a judge at the lower court level, corrupt judge, wouldn't let the case proceed. We're up at the appellate court. We have cases against Louis Farrakhan, that vehement anti-Semite, anti-Christian Nation of Islam, to hold him accountable for the deaths of police officers in Dallas a few years ago, including my client's son, Patrick Zamarripa. My client is Enrique Zamarripa, a very fine Latino family. This is what we need to be doing. In the words of Thomas Paine, these are the times that try men's souls. We cannot be summer patriots. We have to be revolutionaries in our own right. We have to preserve the creation of our founding fathers on July 4th, 1776, or all will be lost. We heard a lot of music yesterday, whether it was country music or otherwise. It was a little bit like sitting on the deck of the Titanic, playing music as the ship of state was sinking into a corrupt sea of what we now call the swamp. And that is why I am issuing this clarion call, this July 4th. We can see the disrespect that was paid to President Trump and to the rest of us deplorables, the people who shop at Walmart and others, and Costco. We are the foundation of this country, not these radicals, and we must fight back. And make no mistake about it, we are in a second American Revolution as we speak. We have to do more than what my former group does, Judicial Watch. Freedom Watch does what Judicial Watch did when I ran it. Tom Fitton is not a lawyer. They changed the mission when I left to furthering transparency in government. Well, that's fine, transparency in government. But once you uncover the rocks and you see the cockroaches that crawl out from underneath those rocks, the rattlesnakes, the vermin, the reptiles, what are you going to do about it? Go on Fox News and beat your chest and say how great you are and get all these accolades from the newsmen who are happy because they've got documents and they can then promise things that the government's going to do something when the government we know is not going to do much of anything. And I'm even talking about William Barr. He's part of the establishment. Don't expect much. You have to join a group like Freedom Watch, become part of our Justice League, be proactive, be a revolutionary, peacefully and legally. Because if we're not, next year will be a whole different set of circumstance. We'll be long on our way to the extinction of this country. And that is why I do what I do. That is why I am the anti-lawyer. That is why back in 1994 I founded Judicial Watch. I saw the corruption on the judiciary, and I'm going to talk about that later today, or just the simple conflicts of interests and the fact that it's so compromised that it can't represent the American people anymore in our current system. And I started Judicial Watch, and it took off, and it became very well known. It became a major force in Washington. In 1994, on July 29th of that year, we founded that organization. I left in 2003 to take the concept of Judicial Watch inside of the U.S. Senate. It wasn't a good time for me to do it for a lot of different reasons, personal and professional. And I did not become a U.S. Senator, but I'm glad that I didn't because I'm better from the outside. And now, after 42 years of legal practice, I know it needs to be done to save this country, but I need your support. I need you to enlist in our citizens' army, our citizens' navy, our citizens' air force. We are the complement to President Donald J. Trump. We must save this country for our children and our grandchildren. And that's why I'm very proud to be on this radio show, because I can speak to you each week. Please share it with everybody that you know, because time is short. The country is slipping away, but we can save it, because even a few good men and women, like Gideon's army in the Bible, can save this great state, just like they saved the state of Israel, which is where our Judeo-Christian heritage hails. I'm going to be right back with the second segment of Special Prosecutor with Larry Klayman, so stay tuned.
Fearless.
Disclaimer, he's crazy, he's racist, he's out to kill the Democrats.
Dangerous.
You don't care, he uses the court and the law.
Lethal.
This is bad,
Special Prosecutor
very bad.
Larry Klayman.
If you'd like to support Freedom Watch and this radio show, go to freedomwatchusa.org.
As just one example of how your Freedom Watch is special and how this radio show is special because we get the word out, is the lawsuit that I brought on behalf of Dr. Jerome Corsi. He was on last week's show. You know him as a patriot. You know as someone who stood up to Robert Mueller, someone who said, I will not lie under the tutelage of my creator, the Father and his Son. I will not implicate the president in crimes that he didn't commit. And he did that in the face of being threatened with an indictment if he didn't lie against the president. He did that in the face of being offered a sweetheart plea deal where he could plead to one count of perjury with no jail time if he would simply lie. Now, he risked everything because Dr. Corsi is now almost 73 years old. If he was convicted even of one count of perjury, he would go away for the rest of his life. But he said, I can't do that. I have to be true to myself. He's been vilified by the left. He's a great author. He's published 22 books, several New York Times bestsellers. He's never been proven wrong. But like me, and that's why he's my friend and my client, he will stick his neck out. He will say, yes, Obama's birth certificate is fraudulent. He never said where Obama was born. He just simply said, this birth certificate is fraudulent. He said John Kerry, that was a book that actually influenced the elections in 2004. John Kerry was a traitor in Vietnam. He swift-boated him. He stood up for things that he believes is right without worrying about it. And that's what we all have to do. We cannot worry about the consequence because there's a much greater objective on the horizon, saving our nation. And if our military can risk their lives and give their lives to our nation, clearly we can, in a legal sense, preserve the nation as well and be its complement. And therefore, it was Dr. Corsi who testified in front of the citizens' grand jury, again risking everything, to indict Robert Mueller. Go to Freedom Watch's YouTubes at Freedom Watch YouTube. Go to our website, freedomwatchusa.org. See what we did. See the power that the American people have in their own hands that we need to exercise. But Dr. Corsi also brought a lawsuit, and I filed a brief this week in that lawsuit. You can see it at freedomwatchusa.org. We filed a case against Mueller. This was during the time that Dr. Corsi was under threat of indictment and criminal prosecution against the special counsel. We had the guts to do that. I had urged the president to do the same thing. If he did, he wouldn't be facing impeachment right now in all likelihood. Mueller would have backed down just like he did with Dr. Corsi. And what did Dr. Corsi sue about? He sued about violation of his First Amendment rights, trying to coerce him into telling or testifying under oath falsely. The illegal surveillance on him, as the illegal surveillance was also trained on the president, his family, his colleagues, and hundreds of millions of Americans through the NSA, Obama's intelligence czars, James Clapper and John Brennan, and also illegal grand jury leaks meant to smear him as Mueller attempted to smear others, to try to destroy them, regardless of whether there were indictments or regardless of whether there was an impeachment. This was all an attempt to take down the president in a coup d'etat by destroying people in and around the president. They would later get to the president and destroy him too. Mueller is a product of the establishments of both political parties. The establishments of both political parties, Democrat and Republican, are more content and they desire more to stuff money into their pockets to amass power at the expense of we the people. And this is why we're in a revolutionary mode, because that's what happened in the days leading up to 1776, the greed of the British crown, the raping of the American people, figuratively and literally, the raping of the colonies. And we stood up. We didn't get down on our knees. The founding fathers didn't just gather documents and complain. Yes, they wrote a document, the Declaration of Independence, and they said, look, we're going to risk our lives, pledge our fortunes, and our sacred honor to form a new nation. And that's what Dr. Corsi and I are doing in this particular case. Now, when we come back in our third segment, our longest segment, I'm going to explain that case in greater detail, and I'm going to give you a lesson on our judiciary, because the judge who was just appointed to this case, you won't believe, worked as a partner with Robert Mueller and Jeannie Rhee, who also was one of special counsel's Mueller's prosecutors. And this is the problem with our judiciary today. It's a problem with our nation today, and we need to resolve it. I'm going to be right back, but until I do come back, I want you to go to our website at freedomwatchusa.org and enlist in our Justice League, because time is short, and we must preserve the vision of our founding fathers. So help us God. I'll be right back.
And now, 4 words that make corrupt politicians make wee-wee in their little pants.
Transparency and the rule of law will be the touchstones of this presidency.
But we have to pass the bill so that you can find out what is in it.
Special Prosecutor Larry Klayman.
Be the one who makes our country great again. Go to freedomwatchusa.org and donate.
This lawsuit that we filed against Robert Mueller for violation of First and Fourth Amendment rights, grand jury leaks, illegal surveillance by Dr. Jerome Corsi is a powerful lawsuit. But to try to get it through the courts with our politicized judiciary is not an easy task. And that's why we need your strong financial support. So go to freedomwatchusa.org. Please contribute to our cause, because Dr. Corsi and I are at the forefront of taking on these very powerful interests. When we first filed the lawsuit, I had it signed as a related case to Judge Richard C. Leon. He is a Reagan appointee, former Justice Department lawyer, George W. Bush appointee, former Justice Department lawyer like myself. He's about my age, and he made some courageous decisions in enjoining the National Security Agency from mass surveillance against the American people. He called it almost Orwellian. But strangely enough, after he did that, and that decision was then rendered moot because a new law came into effect, the USA Freedom Act, and it was therefore nullified by the appellate court, one of which was at that time, Judge Brett Kavanaugh. I'm not a big fan of Kavanaugh. He's a very politicized judge. And unfortunately, the president nominated him not knowing what he was nominating. And we've seen just in the last several months, he's been ruling with the leftists on the court, along with John Roberts, who is a leftist. He's a closet leftist. He's a closet something else as well. That may be one of his problems, is that they're blackmailing him, this National Security Agency and all of the information that's gathered about people. But that notwithstanding, is that Leon jettisoned the case. I believe that this deep state intel community got to him and in fact blackmailed him, not just to get rid of the NSA cases, but also to get rid of the Mueller case. He's the senior judge. He doesn't want aggravation. He doesn't want controversy. That's fine. Okay. The case was then transferred allegedly randomly. I'm always skeptical as to how cases go to certain judges over at the U.S. District Court. There are a lot of good people over there. There are a lot of honest people over there. But who knows? In any organization, there are people that do things that shouldn't be done. The case went to Judge Ellen Siegel-Uvel, very far left. Not a bad judge in other respects, but very far left, a Clinton appointee. And of course, we were wary of her moving against Mueller under those circumstances, allowing the case to go forward to a jury and to let it happen. Because, you see, Mueller's part of this Washington establishment. It doesn't matter whether you're Democrat or Republican. Mueller is actually a registered Republican. It doesn't matter because the Republican establishment is just the flip side of the coin of the Democrat establishment. It's like the National Football League. You have the American Conference and the National Conference. I've said this many times. But they all have the same objective, to rake in the money and the power. They eat dinner together. They go to parties together. They laugh together. They look down on the rest of us in the rest of the country at our expense. And they're pocketing money. These congressmen and senators and others in Washington, D.C., they become extremely wealthy. Look at the expansion of Washington, D.C. on the Southwest, in Boston, and other areas. It never experiences a recession. It continues to get richer and richer and richer and richer. It's like Sodom and Gomorrah. The change is jingling in the temples as the people are being subjugated to second and third class status. This is what Jesus had to deal with in days leading up to his crucifixion and ascendancy towards heaven. This is what we're dealing with. We've come full circle. And it's just as corrupt as the high priest and the Romans. Let me tell you, after 42 years, when I go to Washington, D.C., and I love the people at Radio America and I have lots of friends, but I'll tell you, there's a dark cloud hanging over that city. And it feels evil. There's something not right about it. I know there's something not right about it. And let me tell you what's not right about it. Just recently, the case was transferred from Judge Uvel to a judge by the name of Carl C. Nichols. Now, he's a recent Trump appointee. Now, he may be a nice man. He may even be an honest man. He's Washington establishment. That's how he got his job. Now, but for the fact that he happened to have been a partner at Wilmer Hale, maybe he's a good judge, in any other case. I don't know. I haven't tested him out yet. Some of the other Trump judges that I've been in front of, frankly, are worthless. Okay, they have no spine. They have no guts. They're part of the establishment. Trump didn't know who he was appointing. These judges were put in front of him by Don McGahn, the White House counsel, that threw him under the bus with 30 hours of testimony and told Mueller that the president wanted to obstruct justice. This is your own counsel that's doing that? Should never even have been there testifying, one way or the other. But anyway, this Judge Nichols, who just got the case because he's new, so cases that are reassigned in the courthouse to even out the workflow, he was a partner from 2009 to 2019 in the mega Washington, D.C., mostly Democrat law firm of Wilmer Hale. Mueller was a partner for at least 5 years with him during that time at Wilmer Hale before Judge Nichols became a judge. Mueller left only when he began his role as special counsel. Now, who else was a partner of Wilmer Hale? None other than Jeannie Rhee, one of Mueller's prosecutors. Jeannie Rhee, who along with Aaron Zelinsky and Andrew Cohen and others, tried to coerce Jerome Corsi into testifying falsely, otherwise he would be indicted. These were all partners of Wilmer Hale. So how can this judge sit on this case to oversee a lawsuit that concerns his former partner, Robert Mueller. Well, let me make a prediction. I'm going to politely ask this judge to get off the case, because there's a conflict of interest and the appearance of a conflict of interest, the appearance of non-partiality. And that's the test. But you see, these judges, they never really follow the law when they're involved. Most of them, and maybe Judge Nichols is different. I'm going to give him the benefit of the doubt, but he should never have been assigned this case to begin with. And I have a feeling that the Chief Judge, Burl Howell, who's a nice woman, I've been in front of her, but she's very leftist. She was appointed by Obama. I have a feeling that she may have assigned this to Judge Nichols, not randomly, because it's not random, because he's a new judge. He's taking the slack away from a lot of the other judges in the courthouse that have too many cases. I have a feeling it was done on purpose. So this is going to be a fight, because you cannot have somebody who was former partner of Robert Mueller and Jeannie Rhee sitting on a case against Special Counsel Robert Mueller when, in fact, he is being prosecuted by Freedom Watch and Dr. Corsi for the acts that occurred while he was special counsel. This is symptomatic of our judiciary today. It's symptomatic of our government generally. And we're talking about people on Capitol Hill who, frankly, do little to nothing. Now, I think there are a couple good people up there. I think Mark Meadows, the congressman from North Carolina, Jim Jordan, the congressman from Ohio, I think they're very sincere people. But unfortunately, they're just a small fraction of our representatives. Devin Nunes, on the other hand, I think he's a two-faced hypocrite. Many years ago, I'd say 3 or 4 years ago, I asked him to investigate the mass surveillance that was occurring on hundreds of millions of Americans. I couldn't even meet with him. He was more intent on making a name for himself over the scandal concerning the FISA court and the Steele dossier and everything else, which he persists in today. And that's fine. Okay, but what about the bigger issue? What about the fact that hundreds of millions of Americans were illegally surveilled, spied upon by the National Security Agency, by the Central Intelligence Agency, and by the FBI, not just under Obama, but even under George W. Bush? What about that? Because that affects all of us. And I'll tell you something, Fox News didn't really want to touch that. I was on a couple times on that with Neil Cavuto and a couple others, Elizabeth, I forget her last name. I was going to say Montgomery from Bewitched. Maybe that's more appropriate. But they didn't really want to get into it because the owners of Fox News, the Murdochs, they had wiretapped and invaded the privacy of the royal family in Great Britain. They almost got indicted for it. They didn't want to talk about it. But yet they made Nunes into a big star. And that's fine. Nunes raised money, beat your chest like Tom Fitton on Judicial Watch, but actually Nunes is actually doing something, not just getting documents. But I have to say this, is that there's the fact that he's compromised, that others are compromised, that our whole country is being run by people that at minimum are compromised in Washington, D.C., including these judges, means that we, the American people, need to do it for ourselves. And that is the reason for the citizens' grand jury. Because back in 1992, it was Justice Scalia who said the grand jury doesn't belong to the three branches of government. It belongs to the American people. And that is why, just like in the Old West, just like Wyatt Earp, we have to mete out justice ourselves. Now, we're doing it peacefully and legally. Wyatt Earp took it a step further. He had to sometimes react before others would try to kill him. There wasn't time to indict. There wasn't time for a trial. There wasn't time for a conviction. There wasn't time for sentencing. You had to make a split-second decision whether you wanted to live or whether you wanted to die. And you didn't have time to go to a citizens' grand jury all the time. But that's what we're saying we need to do. And we, the American people, we own our justice system. Our Constitution says nothing about a Justice Department. Our Constitution says nothing about taking the rights of our own justice system away from us as they were taken away by King George III to the Court of St. James. We need to again seize control of our future, of our government, our real government, not the phony government we have in Washington, D.C., but our real government, government under God, the Judeo-Christian God, not the Islamic God, not the Muslim God, not other gods, the Judeo-Christian God, who believed that all people are equal, who believed that all people should be treated with respect, who believed, more than believed. I mean, the Father and the Son were God and are God, but they stood for equal justice. And that's why we have our First Amendment. Yes, you are entitled to worship the religion of your choice, but let there be no mistake about it. Throughout our Declaration of Independence, throughout our Constitution, they weren't referring to Allah. They were referring to Yahweh and his Son, Jesus. So this is what we need to remember this July 4th. And I know that I'm proselytizing a lot. I'm trying to teach. I'm trying to motivate today and to a greater extent. That's why I don't have a guest, because I want to talk to you today, because we are at a crossroads and we must rise up and we must eliminate the judges and the lawyers and the others who are taking this country down legally and peacefully. In the book of Isaiah, God looks upon the counselors and the judges to restore the tarnished city to the faithful city. So we need a legal system that works. We need a legal system that is not compromised and corrupt. And I continue that fight. We've talked about it in other shows. We need a new way of selecting judges. We have highly politicized judges now, politicians in robes, and that's what I'm afraid of with Judge Nichols. I'm going to give him the benefit of the doubt. I hope he gives me the benefit of the doubt. There's only one judge over there, frankly, who's willing to do anything of any major degree, and that's Judge Royce Lamberth, from what I found. The rest of them they hide. They put their head in the sand. They don't want to be outside of the mainstream. They're establishment people. They care more about themselves than they care about the American people when it comes to political issues and truly getting justice. And that is why we need to renew this country. That is why this Independence Day, we need to take stock of who we are, and we need to move forward in a peaceful and positive direction. We need to fight the left of social media. We need to fight the left. We need to renew our faith in the arts. The arts are the one thing constant that we have, you see, whether it's writing, whether it's filmmaking, whether it's artists, whether it's other things. The art and the music really tells you about the state of our country and of the world. You listen to music today, why are all the entertainers in Las Vegas, the old timers that actually played music and could sing music? Today, you can hear it in the music. You can see what trouble we're in the arts. We need to renew the arts to renew our own soul. I'm going to be back with the verdict section of Special Prosecutor with Larry Klayman. I want you to listen very carefully. I want you to pledge yourselves, pledge your honor, your fortunes, and your lives to saving this country. I'll be right back.
Before he was a trial lawyer, he sliced him and diced him.
People used to ask me, Larry, what caused you to start Judicial Watch and now Freedom Watch, given the powerful forces in this country that put you at risk?
In a meat packing plant.
I'm the son of meat packers in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. I know how to slice and dice.
A very special prosecutor, Larry Klayman.
If you'd like to support Freedom Watch and this radio show, go to freedomwatchusa.org.
Now the verdict, fellow patriots, that we, the American people, will rise up. There are enough of us left that still believe in God, that still believe in hard work, that still believe in honesty, that still believe in ethics, that still believe in the vision of our founding fathers. We may not be the majority anymore, but we're the strong minority, and the minority will prevail, because those people with strong views and those people who are willing to risk all because they believe in our Creator, like Dr. Jerome Corsi, and who believe in justice, in the end, have to win, because those who don't are very flawed. And like I said at the outset of this show, this band of criminals that have come together to take this country down, if they ever succeeded, they would be fighting with each other. It would be like the Bolsheviks and the White Russians after the Russian Revolution. The Bolsheviks won out. The extreme communists won out. But we cannot allow the radical left to win out now. And that's why we need your help. And that's why my client Cliven Bundy needs your help Even under a Trump Justice Department, they continue to persecute him. I'm having to file an appellate brief in about a month. I just got new documents about a whistleblower that said there were death threats, not just threats, but there was a kill list on the heads of the Bundys. They were disparaging their Mormon faith as subhuman and animals. We cannot allow this to happen. We see violence in the streets with Antifa. We have a lawsuit on that. We're up at the Ninth Circuit. All these things are out there, and we need to pledge our lives and our fortune and our belief in God this July 4th, Independence Day. And, you know, there was a movie called Independence Day, and it was dealing with space aliens coming down and the United States and the world united. You know, there are UFOs. We had the great scholar, Dr. Stephen Greer, on just a few weeks ago talking about the fact that there are UFOs. Now, you know what? These other civilizations, they've been here for hundreds of years. They've been observing what we're doing on this planet. And they're most likely peaceful, you see, because they've evolved. Unfortunately, the human species has not evolved that much. I mean, we're still barbarians in many ways. But there are good people amongst us. And there are people who believe in the Father and his Son to follow on in what they have told us to be as people. So whether there are UFOs or space aliens or whatever else in this world today, we have our own fate in our own hands. And I can't say it enough. And I don't mean to toot my own horn so much, because I want other people to join us. I want other groups to band together. Soon, Bob Barr, who I worked with to impeach Bill Clinton, the only congressman I could ever trust, former U.S. attorney from the Northern District of Georgia, former congressman, he will band together with me on the citizens' grand juries. It will be the dynamic duo, Klayman and Barr, just like back during the Clinton years. And I want you to support that, because we need people to come together. There's enough corruption out there for all of us, and we all have to play a role in restoring our country. This is not a selfish exercise in self-aggrandizement. So go to freedomwatchusa.org. Join our cause. Go to ClivenBundyDefenseFund.org. Go to CorsiLegalDefenseFund.com. Support these causes and support other valued causes of people and groups that want to bring this country back to the vision of our founding fathers. But do not be fooled by those groups who simply gather documents and then boast about their success. That's great for their own success, just like congressmen and senators boast about their success so they can line their pockets, so they can be reelected, so the money changers in the temples can carry on. We have another mission. We have justice as our mission. We have saving this country as our mission. And if we have to give our lives to do it, we will do it. And we have to be fearless, not just for our kids and grandkids, but for future generations beyond that. Because if we lose the country today, we will lose it all, and we will lose our own godly faith. I'll be back next week with another edition of Special Prosecutor with Larry Klayman. Until then, God bless you, God bless your country, and God save this nation. Thank you for listening to me each week, and please share this show in particular with all of your friends and fellow patriots. We need your support. We need to come together to save the country. God bless you.